Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Hunting Matters, brought to you by the Houston Safari Club Foundation. We're doing something a little different this week. We've got one guest in studio, and we've got one guest calling in from Africa. On the video is Steve Schwartz, who's the owner and outfitter of Nkwazi Safaris. Did I say that correctly? The N is
Nkwazi,
silent.
yes.
Nkwazi. The N is not silent, so Nkwazi Safaris. And here beside me to my left is Larry Hope, who is a client of Steve's. So we're going to get a unique perspective and talk about hunting in South Africa and talk about experiences not only from the outfitter side, but from the client side, which is really cool. I'm excited about that. So you can learn more about both our guests today in the show liner notes, give a full biography about them. So Steve and Larry, thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to be here.
So what time is it
Thanks for
there,
having me.
Steve? Steve, it's what, 11 o'clock there at night?
Yeah, we're 11 p.m. on the button here.
So, Steve, take us back to the beginning. What was it like growing up in a hunting family in Johannesburg?
It was good, hey? It was, I suppose there could be a lot worse ways to grow up, put it that way, eh? It got to a stage where, I was going out with my dad on hunts with clients when I was still in high school, and it started getting to a stage that my grades weren't reflecting properly the way that they should. And there was actually a sit-down meeting with my parents and the headmaster, and that kind of was, your son kind of needs to finish school and then he can, carry on. So, the last 2 years of school weren't the best because I wasn't out hunting and going along with my dad and all of that. But afterwards, did a whole bunch of stuff and just always led back to hunting. And I suppose being in a family from a young age, it kind of forged a career path over time, hey?
Yeah. Was your whole family involved in hunting operations?
So it was more my dad. My dad hunted from, a very young age, probably about in his early 20s, and then went into it professionally in 1999. And
Okay.
then kind of the company just kind of went up from there and grew from there.
Okay. So this is
Yeah.
now become a multi-generational business. I'm
Yeah.
curious because we all have mentors that in our lives, and you were fortunate to have a father that was a hunter and was in this type of business. Um, is there something that you learned from him that still sticks with you and shapes how you run hunts today?
Oh, yeah, so much. We'd be here till tomorrow if I had to start. But just, if I think off the top of my head, little things that have always stuck with me, um, and also got brought up with high standards.
Mm,
So that's kind of never left me, and attention to detail and that kind of stuff. And also a thing that I've learned with it was good client relations. You learn how to talk to people, you learn how to deal with people. Um, and it kind of progresses from there and kind of all goes hand in hand. And especially funnily enough, a lot of stuff with dangerous game hunting. I think the strangest thing to me to adapt with after he was gone was, we were dialed in the field, if you know what I mean. If we went
yeah.
into a dangerous situation, we didn't have to talk. We just knew what each other's job was, and we were that dialed. For me, I thought to myself, I was like, where am I going to get someone that I can trust at that level, moving forward here? And, there's a couple of guys that I trust pretty implicitly. There's a PH working with me now as a freelancer. I mean, he's very, very good with dangerous games. So you know what I mean? If I need someone there is someone that I can use that I trust,
Yeah, I can imagine that type of situation. It's the level of trust and the ability to just communicate through hand signals and eyes and reactions and things has to be critical in the field, especially hunting dangerous game.
100%.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about you've got a unique background. You have a degree in exercise science, and you worked as a personal trainer for several
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
How did that come? How did that come about in all this hunting that's going on?
Yeah, so I was always active. I was always in the gym. I enjoyed training. I enjoyed going to the gym, 5 days a week, just keeping a healthy, fit, active lifestyle. And, after school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I had to do something. You know, we weren't just going to go into the hunting business and carry on like that. So I had to get some sort of further education, and that was like a rule. So I took a gap year, turned into two, did a bunch of stuff, kept myself busy, but kind of thought to myself, well, there's an opportunity here, you know, it's something I enjoy. Let me study exercise science. You know, even if I don't use it, there'll still be something for me to use from it.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life moving forward. And I still use what I learned back then up until today. Still go to the gym as much as I can. And yeah, and then that went well for about 5-6 years, and then kind of just from one December to the next January, I kind of just shut it down and got out of it, and then started up into videography and video editing and stuff. Opened my own little company doing that. And then also, you know, it's just slowly intertwined it into the business. It became a very big part of our marketing, what would you call it, marketing strategy with the videos and video promotions and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, also you at a stage was getting quite busy with other outfitters that had clients coming out that wanted their hunts filmed. Guys would get in touch with me. I'd go out, film their hunts for them and that kind of stuff. Then COVID obviously hit, and that also kind of died down a bit. And then when we came out of that COVID slum, you know, the business started picking up again, and you know, still got the business, but it's kind of more of a sideline thing now versus the safari business. We kind of focus on that more now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure you're based on your background. You know, we call guys like you gym rats here in the States. I'm sure that
Yeah,
that's
same
that.
kind of thing in South Africa. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes people probably are like, man, I can't keep up with this guy. He's constantly, constantly cranking, constantly going.
Capital Farm Credit understands that there's something about the outdoors that pulls you in. Could be the fresh air, the colors, the smells, the animals, the freedom. It's all just a part of who you are. And with our recreational land loans, you can purchase land for whatever outdoor pursuit you please. That way, the outdoors won't just be in your soul, it'll also be in your name. To learn more, visit capitalfarmcredit.com. Together, we're better.
I've got to think that your perspective and your experience in videography and photography has to add to the level of experience that your clients have, whether they've got a cameraman following them around or not. Tell us a little bit about that.
So are you asking, you know, fitting in with a client on the hunt as a videographer, not getting in the way?
Yeah, yeah,
Look,
yeah.
it's fairly easy, you know, and when you've got a hunter filming a hunt pretty much versus, you know, one of these guys you find on the internet and you need a videographer and they come out and they go on this hunt with you, but they've never filmed in a hunting environment. They've never filmed on a hunt and filmed as being part of a stalk. And, you know, if I'm not filming on our hunts or anything like that, I've got someone videoing that knows hunting, that is a hunter. Funny enough, guy that I use as one of my PH is Tristan, and he also does a lot of videography. Larry's had him on. Into any situation.
Right.
And that goes a long way with videography. And I always tell a lot of the guys, you know, I often get guys that say to me, oh, well, you know, can we come and video for you? And I'm like, what hunting videography experience do you have? Because if, you know, I can almost guarantee it, if they don't have that hunting videography experience, there's a bigger chance they're going to blow your hunt than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Larry, you've had this experience and I have too. I've been in front of and behind the camera on hunts. And I think probably one of the best qualities about a videographer, a good quality videographer is they're invisible. You don't even know you're there. What's been
Absolutely.
your experience?
No, I
Yeah.
would agree with that. And when, you know, when Steve was talking about Tristan, you know, that's what was going through my mind is he's a very, very accomplished bow hunter and he certainly rifle hunts as well. And he just disappears. I mean, you don't even appreciate it. And then afterwards, you know, you're seeing things watching the video that you didn't even appreciate were going on. And the video, especially on my buffalo hunt with Steve and Tristan, I don't know how many times I've gone back and watched that, and there's different things that I see, things that I don't remember happening, that it's right there in video proof. And that for me is what's really kind of interesting about it is, yeah, he's part of the team, blends in, but it's just, he disappears.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's always key, especially doing the type of hunting that you guys are doing. Um, you talked about a little bit about Steve, a little bit about you've had this background in exercise degrees, and you've had you grew up hunting and that sort of thing. Was there kind of a moment in your life where you were like, "This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life"? I mean, you had varied experiences, you've been exposed to it, but was there a time when you went, "Okay, this is what I'm going to be doing with the rest of my life"?
Yeah, I kind of, it was always a thing for me. I must be honest, Joe, if I can go back as far as I can remember, it was always, this was it. And even if I strayed away from it at the end of the day, this was going to be it. It was just, and it's not that it was forced on me by any means. It was
Mm,
just, I just had a huge, I was so intrigued by it, the whole, and not even the shooting and the hunting side of it per se. I mean, when hunt is such a broadly used word, but to me, hunt means a lot more than just shooting and the kill.
yeah.
It's the experience of being out there. It's the camaraderie amongst yourselves around the fire at night. It's the stories. It's the bonds that are built and the friendships that are formed. It's it's a brotherhood, if
Mm,
if it's a correct word to say.
yeah.
And I just I don't know if I'm straying off here on your question, but yeah, it's a lot more for me than just the hunt and the kill, and it's a big side of it as well for me as the conservation aspect.
Hmm.
Um, if we don't manage what we've got correctly, we won't have it left. There's always that huge debate between the anti-hunters and the hunters that never see the same perspective, and this is much on it. Um, and I was recently in the States with Larry, and we got onto the topic of conversation with, leopard quotas, and they in the process of approving a leopard quota finally for the first time in, it must be about 6, 7, or even more years.
Mm,
Um, where they're starting to lift these quotas, there's progress, and it's back to that old saying: if it pays, it stays.
yep.
You take the value away from something, watch how fast it disappears, and people might not think that these leopard are getting hunted and stuff like that, or these leopard are getting killed and they're endangered. It's quite the opposite. In our property, we're about 2,500 acres. I'm not quite sure what that is in hectares. Not
Hectares,
quite
yeah.
sure what that is, but it must be about close on about 6,000 acres. And we've got 4 cats on our property right now that we can't do anything about.
Mm,
At the end of the day, cats need to eat. Um, and if there's good food there, they're going to eat. And there's a big property across the road that I hunted on with Larry earlier on when he was with us last year. And the manager of the property there was also saying that they also got about 15 or 20 leopards on the property.
wow.
And there's available um, animals for there to be a quota. Obviously isolated correctly in the right areas and not overshooting areas versus others. But currently, trying to get a leopard tag in Limpopo is going to be like trying to draw the lottery.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely frustrating, I'm sure, for you as being involved in this business on a day-to-day operation. But it's frustrating for me too, and for hunters when I always go back to the science. Go back to the science. Look at the science. Look at the animal populations. Look at the availability. And if you're managing your property and you're managing your herds and your wildlife properly, you're gonna have enough leopards that you can hunt. Maybe you can hunt a couple a year or something like that and have that quota. That's real frustrating, I'm sure, for you as much as it is for us as people who love the outdoors. And
Yeah.
that happens in the States too. Sometimes decisions are not based on science, which is very, very frustrating. Hunting Matters is presented by Copandero Indoor Archery Pistol and Rifle Range, your premier indoor archery pistol and rifle shooting destination. Located in Oak Ridge North, right next to the Woodlands, Copandero offers 2 25-yard pistol ranges, a 100-yard rifle range, and a 25-yard archery range. Whether you're honing your skills or just starting, Copandero has everything you need, including rentals, classes, a retail store, an in-house cafe, and a VIP lounge. Join Copandero today for an unmatched shooting experience. To learn more, go to copandero.com. But I'm glad you brought that point up, and especially the point about conservation, because I know that you're a member of Custodians of Professional Hunting in South Africa.
That's correct. Yeah.
What is that, and how does that affiliation reflect your standards as an outfitter?
So Custodians there's obviously always been one professional hunting organization, which is FASA in South Africa.
Right.
And then, there was a bunch of guys that also, wanted to start another organization, and we started the other organization. And, there'll always be, I don't want to say conflict, but it's two different organizations. So, but at the same time, we all try and work together, because at the end of the day, it's about the bigger picture. It's not about, I'm on this team, you're on that team. Some of us may have different views on our, I don't know, ethics and the way that we want to do things and the way that we conduct ourselves in the industry. But at the end of the day, we all in this for the same reason. It's all because we love conservation, we love hunting. It's our livelihood, it's our career, it's also our passion. I can almost guarantee you any South African outfitter or professional hunter you ask will tell you that this is their passion. Because people that in this industry don't do it if they're not passionate about it.
Yeah, and it's not
So
easy, not an easy gig
no,
either.
it's not. It's a lot of hard work, and we just all want to achieve the same thing at the end of the day. And stand for the bigger picture of conservation and preserving what we've got and growing what we've got.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that point earlier about there has to be a value attached to
Of course.
species in an animal. I heard somebody many years ago said, if people stopped eating mashed potatoes and French fries in the U.S., the potato farmers would go out of business because there'd be no value associated with it. It's the same thing with any wild game species. Science is very, very important, but at the end of the day, too, money is what drives it. I mean, money is, is what funds your operation, and it allows you guys to do supplemental feeding and water and all those sorts of things. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. That's the same thing in the U.S. as well. But anytime something becomes a commodity, it becomes worthless, and that's a shame, because we've seen species all over the world that have been eliminated or are in trouble because of the fact that there's no money or science attached to it. The hunting has gone away. We've seen areas that have opened up to hunting again, that where you're like, wow. We had 100 of these animals in this property, and now there's 500 animals just a few years after they've started to allow hunting. And to the anti-hunter or the non-hunter, that doesn't make sense to them.
100%. And at the end of the day, Joe, facts don't lie. Stats, black and white facts don't lie. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Origins Foundation, Robbie Kroger.
Yep.
And what he does for the industry and all of that. And he's kind of, I've always taken my hat off to that man and what he's done and what he's achieved for our industry. And, I always like to catch up with him when I see him once a year at our AGM and all that kind of stuff. And just such an ambassador for our industry. And, anyone that wants to know the bigger picture, I think, then doesn't understand that wants to understand, I think is a very good place and platform, if not one of the best, to get the best understanding, factually based, on hunting and conservation and what the facts and statistics really are about it.
Yeah, he's a good storyteller too. I mean, he definitely conveys the message. So, Steve or Larry, how did you and Steve first connect?
This goes back, correct me here, Steve, if I'm off, but probably 3-ish, maybe 4 years. And I had a hunt booked with Steve's father. And, everything was squared away. We were set up for the following summer. And it's not something I normally just glance at during the weekday, but I was getting ready and I looked on Facebook, and Steve had posted something on Nkwazi Safaris page, and he's referring to his father in the past tense. And I'm like, oh man, kind of began, to realize kind of what had happened. And, so, the selfish part of me is, I'm a little disappointed. This probably isn't going to happen. Then the more human part of me is, let's just
Yeah.
Kind of let everything settle down. Steve reached out, a few weeks or whatever after that, and we were able to. He said, "Look, it's going to take a while. Let me refund you guys your money. Let's go. We'll go through all the motions to get everything kind of squared, back and squared away." And that was really, about it. I would, my friend who went with me on both hunts, Bob, we were both very, appreciative of Steve that he's, dealing with this turmoil in his own personal life, but then also, taking care of business and kind of, doing what he can to, to kind of help us out. And then, didn't go on to hunt that safari that summer. Fine, things happen. And then that following spring, Steve reached out, and we had been occasionally, we'd share things on Facebook, or we'd occasionally have messages back and forth. So we were still kind of in contact, and that he had a buffalo hunt that came available, and I'm like, yeah. I really don't want to spend that much money right now. And completely serendipitously just mentioned this to my, at the time, 18, 19-year-old daughter. And I said, man, I'd really like to go on this, but it's kind of expensive. And Steve gets back to me and said, we can work on the price a little bit. And now it's into that, I should really go have a chat with the wife conversation.
Yeah.
And it was really my 18-year-old daughter around the dinner table, and she's the one talking to my wife. She's like, Mom, this is really a pretty good deal. I mean, this is kind of a once in a lifetime thing. So, there was reluctant agreement, and 37 seconds later, I'm connected to Steve. And so that's kind of the beginning of our, relationship and friendship. And it's just kind of grown from there.
Yeah. I want to talk about the affordability of hunting in Africa a little bit later. Are you looking for an investment that goes beyond the ordinary? Wildlife Partners is the nation's leader in breeding and consulting for the exotic wildlife industry. When you invest in wildlife, you're not just acquiring a 100% tax-deductible asset, you're playing a vital role in the conservation of endangered species. Do you own land? You can turn your ranch into a profitable wildlife-driven business. And even if you don't own land, that's no problem. Wildlife Partners offers unique opportunities for non-landowners to invest in conservation while enjoying significant tax benefits and potential cash flow. But so you went the first time, then you booked again. What made you book again with Steve?
Part of it is, and I'll take just a little bit of a step back. So I've been on 4 hunts in Africa, with 3 PHs.
Okay.
One was very nice. I mean, almost a little too nice compared to what. I mean, it was more luxurious, I guess, than anything.
Yeah.
But again, nice. Great food, great accommodations, everything. I'm not really used to being pampered, but fine. But the prices were a little bit steep, but it was overall, it was a good experience. Went with another individual, and everything I just said in the positive, we could go in the negative. Very little game, felt very transactional. Everybody chain smoked, everybody cussed like sailors, and it just wasn't not the vibe that, especially when you're paying that kind of money and to go overseas. And then the 2 trips with Steve, and I'm not wanting this to sound like a commercial, but they were both, just it was exactly what I was looking for. It's just a good, solid guy that knew what he was doing, that took care of business, and that after a few hours, you just felt like you've known this person and were, been friends with them for a while. Now, granted, we had been talking a bit, back and forth, but so it was a no-brainer. When I decided to go back, I mean, Steve's the first guy I called. I mean, there's again, it's after 2, one good experience and one really bad one. That's the one that scared me, and I don't, to me, it's not worth risking. How do you separate when you're half a world away? How do you separate, who's a professional and then who's not?
Yeah, and you guys, I'm sure you'll reiterate this feeling, but I've always found you'll learn pretty quickly the outfitters you like and you don't like, and the people you like and you don't like, depending on who you're in hunting camp with, pretty quickly around a campfire.
Absolutely.
Yes, Joe, 100%.
I mean, it doesn't take long, when you're out in that environment, and obviously you guys, hit it off, that first time pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
Of all your trips, all your safaris, was there something that really surprised you the most about your first safari that you really weren't expecting?
I get there's a lot of things that come to mind. One is, and this is my friend Bob, who I've mentioned, and he's an integral part of a lot of these stories. He was one that pointed this out, and it was very true. You get there and you're thinking, okay, I want to at least go after, animals A, B, C, and D. And then you get there and you see something else walking around, or you're in the lodge and they happen to have a trophy or something up on the wall, or you see animals interacting with each other. And so that's kind of not, I wouldn't necessarily say at the top of the list, but just something that I thought was interesting is that what I wanted changed very fluidly as you're there,
Mm-hmm.
and now that I've have some, interesting animals either coming or are on the wall. And so, it makes you want to branch out a little bit and, get some things that are a bit odd. My bush pig, I don't know why, but I just like ugly, weird animals. And my wife absolutely hates it. And it's probably my favorite mount in the house.
Yeah.
I walk in, it just puts a big smile on my face.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the same way about javelina and weird animals like that here in the U.S. too. I like the ugly ones, and I don't know why. Something's wrong with me. So you've had Steve over here into Houston in the United States a couple times to meet some friends and people. What were some of the things that were the questions, and when you introduced them to your inner circle, if you will, some questions or maybe some misconceptions that they had about hunting in Africa that you guys were able to address?
The very first one, I mean, at the top of that list, I think, was the affordability question.
Okay.
And we had, when Steve was here 2 years ago, we had some folks at our house and just barbecue and just kind of a casual conversation. And then this most recent trip, we met some folks at a restaurant, kind of in the Sugar Land area. And I remember there was one of the gentlemen sitting next to Steve, and we're talking about things, and Steve has handed them his brochures, and they're kind of looking through, or he had asked him, like, kind of in general, what's a typical Plains game package cost and that sort of thing. And his head literally kind of snapped back, and he's like, oh, wow, that's not bad at all. And, having been a few times, seen some price lists, talked to Steve, you kind of pay attention to what things are out there. To me, that's kind of a person that's interested in going. I kind of assumed it was common knowledge that it's not prohibitively expensive. Everything's not a $40,000 hunt. So I put that was probably at the top of the list. A lot of questions that we had. Steve, remind me on this about travel, flying there.
Yeah, there was a couple about travel. There was malaria, immunizations, and that kind of stuff. And there was caliber setups. There was a couple of things that we spoke about. With bringing a firearm over versus using your outfitter's rifles. That's a couple of things we could go on to.
That's a big one too. I didn't, when I first started thinking about going, I'm like, well, I got to go, you got to go get a 375. You got to go do all this. And it's like, no, it's, borrow somebody's or in this case, just use Nkwazi. They work, they're top-notch equipment. And, it's funny that the 7 mag was the light caliber for the entire trip. But, that was something I think a lot of people too don't appreciate, that you don't have to mess with the traveling with rifles and ammunition and all that as well.
Yeah, I'm a big bow hunter, so I'll carry a rifle if I have to, if I'm doing long distance shooting. But typically, and I have had my bow case stomped in a couple of airports in the U.S. too, but because they figured out what was in it. But I mean, people don't. I think that is a misconception. People don't realize, listen, I've got some friends like, I'm taking my gun, I'm shooting with this gun. Sometimes it's a sentimental deal. Sometimes it's their father's gun. I get that. But, you don't have to load up all that guns and ammo and deal with all the permits and the transportation if you don't want to. I think that's a very valid point you guys bring up, because obviously you're not going to put a client on a firearm that's not sighted in, and you're not going to have them shoot it first and before they take it out and all that, because that's just, that's a recipe for disaster. But people need to consider that unless you're just absolutely attached to your firearm, most outfitters, they can provide it for you. And do you guys hunt with suppressors over there?
Some places do, some don't. I don't have suppressed rifles at the moment. If it calls for, then I would. But don't really unless needed. Joe, I wanted to ask you with quick one, because I don't know, and I saw something recently about someone that traveled to Africa. Is with traveling with a bow, hard case or soft case?
Hard case.
What's hard case?
Yeah, I use hard case. I always take hard case. I use SKB cases. I'm not endorsing them. There are a lot of good bow cases.
I've also got an SKB.
Yeah, but I like to travel with a hard case, and I've had 2 cases stomped, but luckily my bow and my arrows weren't damaged. Once in Chicago and once coming back through Seattle. I like to hunt black bear with a bow. something's wrong with me because the older I get, the more I like to hunt dangerous stuff with a bow. And I've actually had bears up in the trees with me where in Canada, you can't take a handgun. So all you can do is basically pull a knife or pull an arrow out and stick them in the paw with
Get rid of
with
him there.
to get them off, but get them down out of the tree. But I've had a sow run some cubs up in trees with me before and things like that. But yeah, hard case for me. And now they're making cases that are gun cases too that are disguised as golf cases, and people think you're carrying golf clubs and things like that.
Okay.
So it depends on what airport.
Because I heard that people have had a couple of issues with hard cases versus, I wouldn't say soft cases, but more the material harder cases versus the plastic hard case. But I'm with you on that. I prefer almost the harder case. Stuff can't get damaged.
Yeah, the harder the better. Even if your case gets stomped, at least your bow's protected, usually inside.
Hunting Matters is presented by DEA Ranch. Are you looking for the ultimate South Texas hunting experience? Then look no further than DEA Ranch. DEA Ranch offers some of the best whitetail and exotic game hunts in South Texas year-round. Whether you're looking to fill your freezer or put that next hunting memory on the wall, their professional guides are focused on ensuring each client has a memorable and exciting hunting experience. DEA Ranch offers guided hunts, professional staff, chef-prepared meals, trophy preparation, and more. To learn more, go to dearanch.com. That's dearanch.com.
Larry, from a client's perspective, and we don't want him to get the big head here. What sets Steve apart as a PH and an outfitter in your mind? And you can even address that from a general standpoint of Nkwazi Safaris as well.
Sure. We've kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Just best described as kind of the campfire camaraderie.
Yeah.
In that it's like you said, I think when people kind of relax and the real personality and the real person comes out, I think you can tell a lot. And the same thing when things kind of not necessarily go bad, but when there's a hiccup, there's a problem, the truck gets a flat tire, something like that. I mean, you can tell a lot about people. But with Steve, and again, it's his head inflates on the screen here. But it's, I am more of a seat of the pants type planner on things. And Steve is probably borderline OCD on some things as far as packing in the food. And I realize a lot of that is, it's preparation, and that's his job, is to make sure that the everything that he can control goes as smoothly as possible. And, so I think, again, the camaraderie and as well as just kind of the thoroughness and professionalness of the operation, but still feeling where it's warm and it's not just, you're here for 5 days, see you later, don't get to know each other. It's very different than that.
Yeah. Steve, we're of the same mind. When I do international hunts, we have a guest bedroom, and I start laying my stuff out 3 weeks before, especially if I'm doing a float plane trip hunt up in Alaska, because I always overpack, and I know I've got to cut stuff down. But I get so excited. I start laying stuff out like 3 weeks before. I'm like, well, do I really need that, or do I not need that, or how cold? Check the weather that week right before you go. So we're the same thing. I'm kind of OCD about my planning and packing.
But
just passion. I think that only serves your clients, at the end of the day.
It's not a bad thing. It's just different. I'm glad I'm not, there's somebody else who can deal with it, with the details. And
yeah. So we talked about the traveling with the firearms. We talked about, the affordability, there's always the malaria question. There's, beside those things, what are some of the biggest myths? I'd be interested in hearing from either of you. What are some of the biggest myths that people have about hunting, going to South Africa and hunting in South Africa?
Look, a lot of people that I've reached in the last 2 years when I've been in the States and stuff, people that I've reached at evenings and get-togethers and stuff, meet and greets, is the safety aspect. Now, I know there's a lot going on in South Africa, but there's a lot going on in all sorts of different countries all over across the world.
Yeah.
So everywhere's got their issues, everywhere's got their things. You just got to be careful where you go, that's all. And, if you're with an outfitter and you're arriving at the airport 95, if not 100% of the time, you've either got a shuttle waiting for you, and there's a driver at the gate where you come out of the terminal with your name. your professional hunter that's going to be taking you hunting and driving you up to the reserve, or your outfitter. And, just and people also say, how can I trust people? And also the bigger thing is their kids and their family. They want to bring them out here, but that's the biggest concern, is them being safe even more so than themselves. And, your outfitter and your people aren't going to take you anywhere where it could be dangerous or where you could get hurt. There's always a risk, but there's also a risk when you climb in your car and you get on the interstate. There's always a risk, It's not to freak people out. But just a couple of, pointers that I've seen from when I've picked up clients and stuff, and things I've heard from clients that when they've arrived at the airport and all that kind of stuff, is if anyone comes up to you at OR Tambo International Airport, guys, as you walk out to the drop-off, African guys, they'll come up to you and they'll offer to take your bag for you and help you with your bag and stuff. And, ABC, either they're doing it because they want to do it for you and then they'll help you and then they expect money from you, because as soon as they hear the American accent or foreign accent, they see dollar signs, euros, or pounds, and they think, oh, they're going to get spoiled here and they're going to get hooked up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then, when the client, goes to take their bag or goes to put their bag in the car, the people start getting, all up in arms with them and actually don't want to give their baggage back because they don't want to tip them for pulling their bag 20 yards.
Yeah.
For instance. So just hang on to your own baggage, keep your baggage close, and just they're criminals of opportunity. If they can see you're not streetwise and you're not looking around and you're glued to your phone, then there could be a chance, but typically not. As long as you streetwise and you're aware about your surroundings, you can kind of sense it as well, if you know what I mean. And you shouldn't really, there's not really much time that you'll be by yourself to be put in that situation from when you arrive to when you leave.
Yeah. So, Steve looks pretty jacked. I'm guessing if he shows up at the airport, you'll be just fine.
You'll be fine. Yeah.
He kind of looks like a UFC fighter just at a glance, but that's just my interpretation. And we always laugh. Johnny's laughing, my producer, because he's a boxer, and we're also both UFC fans as well. But nobody wants to imagine an emergency on a hunting trip. But when the unexpected happens, you want the team of medical and security experts at Global Rescue to be there for you. Global Rescue Operations Centers are staffed by experienced personnel, and you'll always speak to an expert on the first call. Global Rescue provides unparalleled capabilities to transport members to the hospital of their choice, not just the closest. So trade what-ifs for peace of mind with convenient travel services designed for the unexpected. Learn more at globalrescue.com/huntingmatters. But so let's talk about I'm glad you addressed that, because I think that's a thing that I hear a lot when people are like, well, what happens if I go to the airport and my guy's not there waiting for me? I know people are going to try to be, taking me back, taking money, this, that. So I'm glad you kind of gave some people, especially people who are maybe hunters but are not international hunters. They've never been traveling before. They've never traveled. So some things to be aware of. I mean, we live in Houston, Texas. Situational awareness in a city this big, it's priority. People sometimes laugh at me when I go in a restaurant and I sit in the back of the restaurant. I always know where the exits are. I know where the kitchen is, and I know where the front door is to get out of that place.
Streetwise, yeah.
Everybody needs to be streetwise and situationally aware. I don't care where you live. I mean, it's always a good thing to have, especially in this day and age. Calibers, rifles, if you are bringing your own firearms. Talk us a little bit through about, plains game versus dangerous game. Have you done both? Kind of what do you recommend, or what have you used?
Well, on all of these questions, I would say talk to your PH. What do they recommend? Most plains game, I think, was either a 308 or a 7 mag. So just kind of what I would call deer type calibers. Sure. And then on the buffalo was a 375, and then I think the kudu, Steve, was at a 338.
338 Win Mag, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But none of them, again, one of the nice things is that Steve has an arsenal that's available to kind of, fine tune for the particular animal. But yeah, on things like that, I would always recommend talking to the agent.
Yeah.
They're gonna have seen more and probably recommend particular brands of ammo or particular types of bullets as well of what they've seen performs well there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great to know. Um, Steve,
Bullets
so
is
you
a
talked
big thing.
what's that?
Bullets is a big thing. Your heads and that's your only contact with the animal.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'm sure you've seen enough successes and failures that you know where to guide your clients in that
Yeah,
area.
we always just we don't get too picky on what, per se brand. As long as it's a monolithic or a bonded bullet, a bonded bullet, something like a Swift A-frame, Interbond or AccuBond, your Bonds, TSXs, that kind of stuff. A bullet that holds well together when it hits heavy bone. It's important.
Right. Right. So you talked a little bit about, the airport pickups and transfers and things like that. So you pick up your client at the airport, then what's next? Is it a long drive to your place to Nkwazi, or kind of how does the first day look for your clients?
So that kind of depends. We offer, typically two different options depending on when the client flies in. And we're not tied down to one property. I've got 8 concessions currently in different areas across Limpopo, where, we could go to either one depending, give a clients the choice on which property they prefer hunt on. And then usually we've also got a couple near there, where we could traverse between. But usually what we'd say is if the flights get in after about 7 p.m., we like to suggest to the guys to check into a hotel for the evening in Johannesburg.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a hotel pretty close to my house. I pick the clients up myself from the airport, drop them off at the hotel. If there's time, we have a quick dinner there. It's actually at Monte Casino. It's a huge, center. There's entertainment, movie, theater houses, all that kind of stuff there, restaurants. And the hotel's in the same center, so it's pretty safe. You don't have to, venture out and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then, we leave for the reserve or the concession that we'd be hunting on like 4 a.m. the next morning. If the clients really want to, we don't mind. It's neither here nor there. We're happy to go straight through to the reserve. We just end up getting there late, and it's a pretty late night. Versus, going through the next morning and then, add an extra day on if you're going to be landing late. And, then you've still got pretty much, if you do it like that and you leave like 4 a.m. the next morning after your hotel stay for the night, you get to the reserve by, say, lunchtime. You can have something quick to eat if you like. If you're a bow hunter, you can jump into a blind at 2 p.m. and you can hunt the afternoon session already. And that's even before the first night of your stay. So you've actually got, on a 7-night stay of 5 full hunting days, you actually, just because you went and left early and did it like that, you've actually got 5.5 full hunting days, speaking hypothetically on a trip.
Right.
And then, at the end of the hunt, so we'd leave, go through to the reserve. That's how the first day would pretty much go down. Then dinner at night and then up early in the mornings. And it's also up to the client as well at the end of the day. If there's a day that he doesn't want to head out to the crack of dawn, absolute sparrows, and he wants to sleep in, because the jet lags hit him a bit, well, that's up to the client, just to head onto it and not to be funny. But I've heard stories from people that have gone hunting in South Africa or come here with, different people and whatever. And you speak to them and they say, no, well, I slept till 7 a.m. and the PH was slamming on my door telling me that he's been waiting for me for the last hour to take me to the blind and that I need to hurry up. I'm like, you kind of, it's your vacation, it's your hunt. I know you're going there to hunt, but at the end of the day, it's your vacation. You're paying there. You can actually do whatever you want, to be straight up honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had those situations before. Yeah, it is your vacation. You're paying for it. So it's kind of nice when you set your own schedule.
In the heart of nature, give your deer the nutrition they deserve with Record Rack Deer Feeds. The premium feeds support antler growth and overall herd health. Whether you're a wildlife enthusiast or a dedicated hunter, Record Rack deer feeds provide essential nutrients for a thriving herd. Choose Record Rack deer feeds for optimal deer nutrition. Visit recordrack.com to learn more.
Trophies, capes, hides, horns, all that stuff, getting them back. How's that been? And how does Steve, I'm going to let you kind of chime in on this as well, but
Cool.
what was that process like for you the first time?
So the first time, I mean, I guess the thing that's a little bit shocking is it takes a while.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. And then I realized, you don't want a low volume taxidermist. So this is something that, my a friend of mine had, and Steve kind of confirmed this as well, as getting, do you have the taxidermy, you have items, prepared over there and shipped over here to be done, or done over there. And I've had more than one person tell me, look, the folks over there have done, they may have done 1,000 impalas where your local guy here may have done 1 or 10, or it's going to look like a whitetail or whatever. So, I chose to have things done over there. And my only really complaint, I guess, is it's just longer. You want to see them, So the first group came back after, I believe, about 18 months.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do to really kind of push them. Steve he's encouraged me to remind him or copy him on any note to the taxidermist and just say, hey, can you kind of move this up a little bit? But, but so far, no surprises. Eventually my shipment was delayed, I guess, because of just general holidays and stuff, and finally picked it up in January, and I've just been smiling ever since.
Yeah. 18 months isn't bad. That's not bad at all. I know. Yeah, you get anxious for stuff, but it's not bad. Steve, I guess I'm assuming you have relationships with reputable taxidermists there close to you that you can help your clients.
Yeah.
So if I'm there, I'm hunting, and I shoot 10 animals, and I'm like, okay, see you later. And I'm relying on you to get the stuff to the taxidermist, or how does that work?
So we'll field prep your trophies. When you're on the property, we salt them, put them in saltwater dettol solutions, all that kind of stuff. Make sure that they're good. They get caped off by our guys, and then after the hunt, we take them home, and then within a day or two, we send them through to our taxidermist. We use predominantly, unless clients typically require otherwise, we tend to use splitting image taxidermy. They're based here in South Africa. And the reason why I like to go with them, their lead time is a bit longer than some of the other guys, but their quality and their attention to detail in their work really is incredible. They really, really do a good job. And then we drop that with a taxidermist, and it's not like you pay us and we deal with the taxidermy and then it gets back to you, this middleman kind of thing. Pretty much when your trophies get dropped off at the taxidermist, we give them a whole lot of documentation, which is your hunting register, which pretty much generates your export form for your trophies, any necessary permits that we need to attach for species that may need permits, hunting rights, our copy of our professional hunter and outfitter's license, all the necessary stuff that needs to be given to customs when your stuff needs to get shipped out. There's a whole lot of different documents that are required from us to go to the taxidermist. And then in that documentation, we have our client's details and what trophies are in there. So buffalo, skull and cape with backskin, kudu, cape, backskin, and so on. And then pretty much that gets logged at the taxidermist, and then the taxidermist, within a couple of weeks of us dropping it off, contacts the client directly, and then I get copied in on that email, and then I oversee correspondence and just keep it for my own records and stuff. And just like Larry said, in case at some stage Larry comes and says this is taking a bit long, can we maybe look at something, then I can go back to emails as well, because I'm in on the conversation, and then pick up on the guys and say, we haven't heard anything since X date, where are we with everything, and just chase up and stay on top of stuff. And then when that's done, they organize with the client, and they organize shipping and export and all that kind of stuff directly with the client.
Got it. So what you're saying is Larry's kind of high maintenance.
No, Larry's easy work. Model client.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. Are you looking for a smarter way to manage your document imaging and print environment? Dex Imaging delivers industry-leading printers, copiers, and fully managed print services designed to cut costs, boost productivity, and simplify your workflow. Whether you're a small business or a Fortune 500 company, Dex provides personalized local service with the power of a national network so you get fast, reliable support wherever you are. Dex gives back, proudly supporting organizations like Houston Safari Club Foundation by giving through profit sharing. Dex Imaging, smarter technology, exceptional service, proven results. Visit deximaging.com or email Adam Montgomery at adam.montgomery@deximaging.com. So Larry did.
Can't get rid of him now.
You can't get rid of him. Hey, that's a good
Can't
problem to
get
have.
rid of him now.
You've been twice with Nkwazi. When you booked your first hunt or even your second hunt, and I'm sure you had an idea. Okay, this is what I'm going to hunt. You know, we talked about the Cape Buffalo and sort of thing. Did your target list change when you get over there?
Not so much on the second one. To answer your question, no, it didn't on the second one. Yeah. I was just thinking though, when you were kind of winding up the question, Steve's like a drug dealer, okay, and so he started sending me these pictures of these cooties that are running around. I'm like, oh man, that's beautiful. And next thing you know, you start thinking about, well, it's time to think about booking a trip. And and so we, I don't know, he's very good about communication, but then also kind of keeping you're aware of what's going on and what just interesting pictures around the properties. Steve, what advice do you have for your clients about being flexible? Because I think a lot of times, especially people, first timers that are going to South Africa or anywhere internationally, where there's a multitude of species available. Sometimes you're like, okay, I'm just going to go do a Cape Buffalo, and then you get over there and you're like, wow, I didn't know you had that. I didn't know you had that. So, what advice do you have to your clients about planning and flexibility? Because you get over there and you're like, man, I made this trip all the way over here. I might as well hunt these things as well. So what advice do you have for your clients about flexibility once they get there?
Joe, every client that comes out, before they come out, 95, if not more percent, are set on a kudu bull and an impala, and that's kind of the top two beginning. Like in most hunts, that's what almost is on everyone's wish list. And if you go on a first timer package, most of the time you'll look at kudu, a blue wildebeest, an impala, and a warthog. And that kind of package, depending on the kudu and the area, and the prices fluctuate with size with kudu now quite a lot. Sure. So depending on the area you get, you could look at a hunt like that being about between 5,000 and 6,000 US, depending on the area and, like I said, the animal size. And sorry, I veered off a bit there. So that's kind of what you're looking at on that. And then go back to your question again. Sorry, just so I can get clear on it again.
No, just the flexibility. I think it's good for people to. They may go there and expect to just hunt a kudu, but they also need to be flexible because, listen, I'll give you a quick personal story. My wife bought me a red stag hunt in New Zealand for my 50th birthday, and then I got to looking at tar and chamois, and I was like, oh, tar are really cool too. Yeah. And she's like, "You're here. You're going to go over there. You're going to be in a plane for 12 hours. You might as well shoot all three and an Arapawa sheep or whatever else you want to shoot, because who knows if we'll ever get to go back." So I think that's kind of the point I was getting to, is people need to be open and remain flexible, because they may see something there that they had no clue that they had to do to hunt.
Often. And sometimes, what you can do as well, some outfitters do it, some don't, some are open to it, is if you've got A, B, C, D species on your package, and you don't get necessarily one of the big animals that are on there. Let's say, for instance, a blue wildebeest. Yeah. And you're not getting one. But, often outfitters will swap up a blue wildebeest for a zebra. But then a really nice zebra comes in, or you see a really nice zebra, but you never got the chance on a blue wildebeest. So they'll say to you, okay, well, we can swap out the blue wildebeest for the zebra. Or they do that sometimes with blesbuck and impala or something like that. And certain species that are much in the same kind of price category and that go for the same kind of price, you can swap in and out. And almost what happens every time, and it's not always, it's often not on hunters' wish list, is gemsbuck, which is oryx. Then they get you and they see one and they see the pattern on the face and the color and the horns, and they're like, those on the list. Like, they almost ask you, like, wide-eyed, like, can we shoot one? I'm like, yeah, they're on the list. And, the guys jump on one almost straight away when they see it
Yep.
very often.
Yeah. Gemsbach is hard to pass.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to add to the list, and you kind of live and learn on these things. When we were over there on this last trip, I don't know why, I really wanted a baboon, and that was one that required planning ahead of time, and I forgot what the permit or whatever was, but it's like, okay, I wish
Yeah.
you would have a month ago or 2 months
Right.
ago, so you could get because there are a few animals that I don't know if it's a CITES thing or but there's a few things that you can't just for the moment
Yeah.
choose to take.
Gunworks just launched a new rifle system. It's called Index. It's sized for adventure and engineered for extremes. With barrel lengths as short as 16 inches and a folding stock that collapses to an ultra-short profile, the Gunworks Index fits nicely in a UTV, a float plane, or across the seat of your truck without sacrificing accuracy. The Index features a built-in ARCA and pick rail for use on tripod or bipod, and a night vision rail to ensure you're ready for any scenario. The Gunworks Index delivers magnum capability in the most compact chassis rifle system on the market. Visit gunworks.com to learn more.
Baboons are
Yes.
incredible. They're
Yeah.
they fascinate me. I mean, they're absolutely destructive beasts, but they fascinate me. First time I ever saw it, we were in a group, and they sent 2 sentinels up in the trees, and the whole herd ran underneath, and the sentinels were watching us. And then when everybody was safe past them, they came down and ran with them. And I'm like, well, that's almost too human
Yeah, and they're awfully smart.
and destructive.
Yeah.
And destructive. What you talked about the fact you have access to multiple concessions. What are the pros of that, Steve? Having access to multiple concessions there.
So often through a season, and some properties run it like this, some don't. Some guys will stick to one property, but a lot of the guys tend to have areas within the vicinity of their home base or areas. Like if we're hunting off one concession specifically, whether it be my farm or not, is sometimes they don't have all the species that you're looking for on one farm. Like sometimes when it comes to color variants, sometimes farms that we have will just have your normal species that are indigenous, but then they might be, and then your clients want, some of the hunters want color variants like black and yellow or golden wildebeest or something. But that landowner whose property you're hunting on might know someone down the road within a 15-20 minute drive that does have, and then you can travel down the road there. All the concession areas that I have, which are big areas that would have camps and lodges, I always try and venture out within the vicinity, but tend to go not more than like 35 to 45 minutes driving distance. That's a lot of time during the day. It's almost 2 hours if you're 45 minutes one way. At our place, typically, we're very lucky. I've got about 50,000 acres available to me within half an hour driving distance of our place, because there's certain species that we limited on quota on, like Inyala, bushbuck, eland, and that kind of stuff. So a lot of the areas around us have, and I work closely with a couple of the outfitters that I know through Custodians as well. And we help each other out when needs be and when we need each other's help. So that helps as well. It just gives you more options. It gives your clients more options as well.
Got it. Larry, what we've got a few minutes left here, but what advice would you give first-time safari hunters, people that are thinking about it or planning it? What as a newbie, what kind of advice would you give them?
The first thing that comes to mind is really before you're in the heat of the moment and you have a half-second window to make a shot. Make sure that you and the PH are on the same page as far as not only like shot angles and that kind of thing, but one being we're so used to in the States and deer hunters, you shoot right behind the shoulder, and I had to drill that into my head or drill that out of my head, go through the shoulder. It's their anatomy's different.
Right.
And then kind of related to that is, if they're make sure that you and your PH have had a chat on if there's any interesting characteristics or anything about a particular animal. I wasn't able to take a shot on a I'm not going to get into the details of it. It wasn't with Steve. I didn't realize I was going to have a split second. You know, I mean, it was one of those things, and you know, and apparently that's part of the characteristic of this particular animal. And gee, ahead of time, it's like, look, when you get on the sticks, you have got to get a shot off. They don't stand still. Would have helped, you know, would have helped a lot. But you know, you live and learn on things. But I think just communication around the campfire, looking at pictures on your, you know, where to shoot a croc as an example.
Right.
And, you know, I just assumed you shoot him in the head. No. You know, so I had the PH ahead of time. You know, we kind of walk through the specifics of these things, so it's not a surprise when you get out there and hopefully don't make a mistake.
Yeah. This episode of the Hunting Matters podcast is brought to you by B&B Taxidermy. Since 1983, the Baird family at B&B Taxidermy have been the premier experts in trophy mounts. Whether it's African, North American, global, or exotic, B&B Taxidermy will provide design, artistry, and attention to detail that you won't find anywhere else. B&B Taxidermy can also design and decorate your trophy room, showcase, or office with custom dioramas built to suit your space. Check out their showroom of exotic trophies on Jones Road in Houston, or visit their website at bbtaxidermy.com. B&B Taxidermy, proud supporters of the Hunting Matters podcast and Houston Safari Club Foundation. Steve, do you have any advice for first-time safari hunters as far as what to expect? And we've talked about a multitude of things, what to expect, but actually in the field, you know, I think that's a very important point that Larry makes, that when you go, you got to get ready to get on the sticks. If your PH, you know, is there and he's like, get on it, you know, you got to go. It happens fast a lot of times. Is there any advice that you would have for first-time hunters?
Yeah, just have very good communication with your professional hunter. You know, if you're not sure of something, even if he hasn't explained it to you, ask him. Don't be shy to ask him. You know, that's why he's there. He's there to help you. He's the professional, and he's there to make your hunt a success. And that being said, of it being a success is my biggest thing, and I say it to a lot of guys, is listen to your guide, listen to your professional hunter. You know, we're there to help our clients. At the end of the day, your success is our success. You know, so if we can work together and you and your client work together versus against each other, you know, that sets you up for the success. And yeah, I think, you know, just, you know, and be attuned with your guide. You know, it's easier said than done. I like to build a good rapport with my clients, and almost, you know, my clients leave their first hunt as friends. They don't leave as clients. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you can build a good connection with your professional hunter and you guys can be on the same page, that goes a long way in the field. And again, if you're not sure, ask.
Yeah, I think a lot, especially guys, we're, you know, we know everything.
You don't need directions.
Yeah, we're good. I always encourage people to ask, especially first timers, especially when you go over there. You're like, you know, it's just, you just don't know what to expect. We always love good hunting stories, and Steve, I'm sure you've had a lot of run-ins, dangerous situations. Can you recall one off the top of your head you could tell us that'll blow my mind, that where you had a pretty dangerous experience out in the field that caught you off guard? I know you guys are situationally aware, you're prepared and all this sort of thing, but every once in a while an animal's going to do what it's not supposed to do.
You know, there's been a couple. You know, with like charges and incidents in the bush, there's been a couple, but, you know, I'll be honest with you, one that stands out more than anything is, I'm going back now, 2018, when I was still guiding with my dad. I was walking with a client from New Zealand, and my tracker was behind me. I was in the front, and the client was at the back. It was a youngster, about 18 years old. And I'm looking in front of us. We were hunting for zebra, and we were looking for zebra. And I stood on something, and it almost felt like a hose pipe, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like you feel your foot roll slightly. And I didn't think of anything of it. I thought it was maybe like a stick that rolled as I stood on it. And as I stood off, my tracker happy said to me, Steve, you're standing on a snake. And I jumped out the way, and I just stood on a wrinkles, which is a type of cobra kind of thing. And I stood on its head. And I thought I'd killed it. And as I touched it with the shooting sticks, it hooded up like that. And then we had to shoot the thing. But I mean, that to me is something you couldn't have seen, if you know what I mean. It just happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, another thing, you know, to guys, is just just watch where you're walking. You know, some
Yeah.
of us don't all the time. These
Well,
things.
we've got spring turkey season coming, and I always tell because I guide for 2 consecutive weekends with clients, just because I love turkey hunting, and I always tell they're like, "Do I need to bring snake boots? Do you see a lot of snakes?" I'm like, "That's the point of wearing snake boots because you don't see the snakes. We always, especially in the spring in Texas, if it's warm enough, there's ticks and snakes, and
Yeah,
I've had
same here.
I've had people actually sit down next to a snake before, and they get set up early in the morning. So you got to be careful. Our guests today have been Steve Schwartz, the owner and outfitter of Nkwazi Safaris, and Larry Hope. Guys, we really appreciate it. I'm going to give your website out here. It's Nkwazi, that's NKWAZI, safaris.co.za. Go check out Steve's website, and Steve, I know people can email you through the website or contact you at any time, and we really appreciate both your time here. And
the Houston Safari Club Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports the future of hunting and conservation. Wildlife and habitat conservation, youth education and outdoor experiences, scholarships, and anti-poaching efforts are just a few of the programs supported by this organization. Monthly events, an annual convention, award-winning publications, networking opportunities, and valuable resources for hunting knowledge are just a few of the benefits of being a member of Houston Safari Club Foundation. If you're searching for a group of people dedicated to protecting the future of hunting, look no further. Join Houston Safari Club Foundation today at wehuntwegive.org or call 713-623-8844.
Any parting words you want to leave our audience, either of you?
No, Joe, just thank you for having us, and we appreciate the opportunity, and it's always good to talk about hunting and share the passion. And I've got to be honest, just something to add there, that I got to thinking yesterday that if it wasn't for Houston Safari Club, I wouldn't have met Larry. So just to put that into perspective, you meet good people through good places. My father was a member of Houston Safari Club, and he donated the hunt that Larry first bought.
Awesome.
So it's just funny how things work together. So it's also nice, and I also want to thank you guys for that too, and thank you, Larry.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. We appreciate that endorsement. So, well, that's it, folks. We've knocked out an hour already. So that's it for this week's episode of Hunting Matters, brought to you by the Houston Safari Club Foundation. Stay safe out in the field, and we'll see you next week. Hunting Matters is a Houston Safari Club Foundation production. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For questions or more information, email us at info@wehuntwegive.org.